Drew here, Frisco Tennis Shop. I just want to do a little brief video about Andre Agassi's book, Open. It's been out a long time now. I think it's published probably a decade ago, if not more. I'm just rereading it. I'm a huge fan of the book, especially since I run my own stringing shop and I'm a professional stringer. I coach. There's a lot of things in this book that I think I learned from. I think everyone could learn from it. In this video, I want to talk about three things that really jumped out and that I thought would be edifying and educational for a lot of us tennis players and those of us interested in tennis. I'll talk about that now. The first thing that jumped out at me in Agassi's book as a professional stringer is the importance of tennis strings. In the beginning of the book, he talks about how important tennis strings are to his game and the emphasis he puts on tennis strings. From page 13 of Agassi's book, he says, "I need my 8 rackets stacked chronologically in the tennis bag, the most recently strung racket on the bottom and the least recently strung on the top, because the longer a racket sits, the more tension it loses. I always start a match with the racket strung least recently because I know that's the racket with the loosest tension." He goes on to say, "A string job can mean the difference in a match, and a match can mean the difference in a career, and a career can mean the difference in countless lives. When I pull a fresh racket from my bag and try to serve out a match, the string tension can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Because I'm playing for my family, my charitable foundation, my school, every string is like a wire in an airplane engine. Given all that lies beyond my control, I obsess about the few things I can control, and racket tension is one such thing." So Agassi obviously knows the importance of making sure he has that edge or knows this variable is constant. So when he goes out on the court, of everything he has to think about, tennis strings are one thing he does not need to think about. He knows that racket is finely tuned and he can pick up any racket from his bag and it will play the same. The second thing that jumped out to me in Agassi's book is towards the end of the book about how the tennis string revolution was happening and how strings have changed since he started playing and how they were towards the end of his career. On page 343, Agassi says, "I've always played with Pro Blend, a string that's half Kevlar, half nylon. You can reel in an 800-pound marlin with Pro Blend. It never breaks, never forgives, but also never generates spin. It's like hitting the ball with a garbage can lid. People talk about the game changing, about players growing more powerful and rackets getting bigger, but the most dramatic change in recent years is the strings. The advent of a new elastic polyester string, which creates vicious topspin, has turned average players into greats and greats into legends." Later on that same page, after speaking with his coach Darren Cahill, who wants him to try these polyester strings, Agassi says, "He puts the strings on one of my rackets and says again, 'Just try.' In a practice session, I don't miss a ball for 2 hours. Then I don't miss a ball for the rest of the tournament. I've never won the Italian Open before, but I win it now because of Darren and his miracle string." The strings Agassi referenced that he played with at the beginning of his career are the Prince Pro Blend. It's a hybrid stringing setup with Kevlar as the main and synthetic nylon as the cross. When he says you can reel in a big fish with this, he's not kidding. Kevlar, when you pull it on a stringing machine, as soon as you pull it, it stops. So it kind of feels like a spaghetti string, but when you pull it, there is really no give to it. So it plays like a board. I still get it requested by people who want no power in their racket setup. But when he says it plays like I think he said a garbage can lid, he's not kidding. It plays very stiff. And when he's talking about his coach, Darren Cahill, recommending this string came on the market, I think Gustavo Kuerten was one of the big players to play with it, Luxilon. This is the original. They also have Luxon ALU Power, which I know a lot of pros play with, ALU Power Rough. And basically what Agassi's talking about is the polyester string revolution. We talk about rackets, we talk about how fit players are, we talk about the swing mechanics, the next gen forehand. Strings really is where the revolution has been big time in tennis. I'm holding up another one, Hyper G. I could grab any polyester string, RPM Blast, you name it. And this is really where the polyester string revolution has taken place that allows players to take big swings and have that ball dive into the court Without strings like this, it really wouldn't be possible. A full bed of synthetic gut is not going to be able to dive like that. Even natural gut is not going to be able to dive like that. So when he's saying he couldn't miss a shot, he wins a tournament after switching strings, I really took from it how this polyester string revolution started by these strings really affected the game of tennis really forever. The second thing that jumped out at me in Agassi's book is really the importance of not taking yourself too seriously out on the court, especially us recreational players. These players who do it for a living, their livelihoods are to a certain extent dependent on it, but for most of us, don't take yourself too seriously, and that's actually going to help you play better. And there's a part of the book, it's kind of a funny part of the book in my view, where he discusses about one time he played relaxed because he actually was out partying late the night before, didn't take the next day too seriously, ended up playing very well. On page 161, Agassi says, "Still, I play Davis Cup and I do fairly well, maybe because it's in Hawaii. We face Argentina. I win both my matches. Then, the night before the last day, Wendy and I go out drinking with McEnroe and his wife, Tatum O'Neal. We overdo it, and I go to bed at 4 in the morning, assuming someone will take my place on Sunday in a meaningless match often called a dead rubber. Apparently, that's not the case. Though I'm hungover and dehydrated, I need to go out and play Yate, whose serve I once caught with my hand. Happily, Yate's hungover too. It's fitting that this is a dead rubber. We both look dead and rubbery. To conceal my bloodshot eyes, I play wearing Oakley sunglasses, and somehow I play well. I play relaxed. I walk off the court a winner, wondering if there's a lesson in this. Can I tap this sort of relaxation when the stakes are real, when it's a slam? Should I just go into every match hungover?" So why did that part of the book jump out at me? He really told himself, I really don't care, I just want to get through this, and he was able to have a relaxation about it, and he actually ended up playing very well. I wouldn't recommend playing hungover like he did that day, but there really is a key concept there. When he was out there and didn't really care that much, wasn't in his head the night before thinking about it, really went out there and just let his natural tennis game, his intuition take over. There's really a key to that. So I think us tennis players can really learn, don't take the game too seriously. If you lose, it is not the end of the world. If you double fault, it's not the end of the world. Have fun with it. We all have negative thoughts. Don't take them too seriously. Agassi learned that kind of in a funny way of how to harness the relaxation of basically playing as if you don't care if you win, because then you can actually be a very dangerous player. The third and final thing I took from Agassi's book is tennis psychology. I'll merge it with tennis parenting. Basically, there's a story at the beginning of the book where the famous football player Jim Brown comes to Vegas, where Agassi grew up, and wants to play for money. From page 51 of Agassi's book, Jim Brown says, "I don't need your house." Mr. Brown says, "I got a house. Let's say 10 grand. Done," my father says. I walk toward the court. "Slow down," Mr. Brown says. "I need to see some money up front." "I'll go home and get it," my father says. "I'll be right back." My father hurries out the door. I sit in a chair and picture him opening the safe and pulling out stacks of money. All those tips I've seen him count through the years, all those nights of hard work. Now he's going to let it ride on me. I feel a heaviness in the center of my chest. I'm proud, of course, to think my father has such faith in me, but mainly I'm scared. What happens to me, to my father, to my mother, and my siblings, not to mention Grandma and Uncle Isar, if I lose? Then on page 52, Agassi says, "My father's back. He's got a fistful of hundreds. He waves it in the air. Suddenly, Mr. Brown has had a change of heart. Here's what we'll do," Mr. Brown tells my father. "We'll play 2 sets and then decide how much to bet on the third." "Whatever you say." We play on court 7 just inside the door. A crowd has gathered and they cheer themselves hoarse as I win the first set 6-3. Mr. Brown shakes his head. He talks to himself. He bangs his racket on the ground. He's not happy, which makes 2 of us. Not only am I thinking in direct violation of my father's cardinal rule, but my mind is spinning. I feel as if I might have to stop playing at any moment because I need to throw up. Still, I win the second set, 6-3. Now Mr. Brown is furious. He drops to one knee, laces his sneakers. My father approaches him. "So, 10 grand? "Nah," Mr. Brown says. "Why don't we just bet 500? "Whatever you say." My body relaxes. My mind grows quiet. I want to dance along the baseline, knowing I won't have to play for $10,000. I can swing freely now, without thinking about consequences, without thinking at all. And he goes on to say he wins that set 6-2 and gets the $500 from Jim Brown. But telling your kid they're going to be number one and putting 10 grand on it and doing that to a kid's psychology, it's something Agassi sort of had to deal with his whole life, taking tennis way too seriously, having this really hatred of the game. It's a common theme through the book. Agassi hates tennis. If you're a parent, really encourage your kid. If they happen to be the next Andre Agassi, great, or the next Serena Williams, great. Chances are they're not going to be. So really just positive encouragement. Tennis psychology is something that's very important. We all have to encourage each other. Take the game seriously, but really if you're having a bad day or if you take the game too seriously, it's not going to be fun. It's a game meant to be played for fun. I hope you enjoyed this video of the 3 things at least I learned from Agassi's book, Open. I would definitely recommend it. I'll put the Amazon link below. I know a lot of libraries carry it too, so your local library may have this book even as an audiobook. It's something that I really enjoyed reading. I think if you're a tennis player, you would really enjoy the book. I think anyone would enjoy the book, but especially us tennis players, there's a lot of key things here that I think we would take from it. The tennis strings, tennis psychology, tennis parenting. This has been Drew from Frisco Tennis Shop, and I hope to talk soon.